Okay, now we're going to talk about fine-tuning those fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses and the more subtle trauma responses in relationship. These I'm frequently working with people in couples therapy to help them identify what those subtle responses are and how disruptive they can be to relationships. So this is going to be an important lesson. And again, you're looking for those more subtle responses that are unrecognizable to anybody outside of you. Now, they might be more visible to your partner if your partner is attentive and tuned in. However, you are going to be getting your first signals that something's not okay and that you're reacting out of trauma. And so I want to, in this lesson, identify those for you so you know what they are so that you can watch for them in your relationship and in how you interact. So, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses within the context of relationship. Okay, we're going to look at each one of them. I'm going to describe behaviors that come from each one. What you're looking for is internal responses that impact your reactions in relationship. And they impact your reactions in a way that doesn't help you make connection with your partner. So let's look at them. First is fight. So when you're in a trauma response that is fight, you're going to want to move reactively toward anger or aggression. So you want to watch your internal signals before you act out. That means that you're going to be aware that you're talking to yourself in a way that reflects anger and aggression toward your partner before it ever comes out of your mouth or out in your behaviors. So, what you might find yourself wanting to do is physically fight, yell, throw things, property damage, name call, shame somebody, make them feel guilty about things. And you might notice your throat tightening or your fists balling up or your stomach getting in knots or you cry or clench your jaw. So start noticing any reactions in your body that make you feel like you're needing to fight for your life. When you notice those, especially with the fight response, what you want to do is enact this 90-second rule. So, what we know when your anger response is, when your trauma response is anger, is that getting angry habitually bathes the corpus callosum. That corpus callosum is a part of your brain that connects your right brain to your left brain. So it allows you to be able to take out of proportion emotions on one side of the brain and make sense of them using your other side of the brain. But because that connection gets lost every time you get angry, it's like bathing your corpus callosum in acid. So it diminishes your brain's ability to integrate what's happening on both sides of your brain. So when you notice internally that you're getting angry and you're starting to react and you want to do some of the things that we talked about on the previous video, on the previous slide, take 90 seconds. Set it on a clock. Give yourself 90 seconds. That 90 seconds is what it takes for a corpus callosum that is moving more slowly to help you realize that maybe you're responding to a threat that's not real in the moment. You're responding to something old. That's a trauma response. So remember that 90-second rule. Then after you calm down, use the 6 steps to help you heal the trigger for this trauma response. Next one is avoiding. So if you are a person who engages in flight, then you're going to shut yourself off from your partner. Now, there will be subtle things that you start saying to yourself, like they don't understand me, I can never communicate clearly, whatever it is. You're going to start having some subtle communication with yourself before you shut yourself off from your partner. I want you to watch for those. And then I want you to notice when you're avoiding conversations, when you're leaving because you're uncomfortable, or shutting off because you're uncomfortable, or making yourself too busy, as in a workaholic, so that you can avoid the conversation or avoid the conflict because conflict feels scary and dangerous to you. What you want to do when you notice yourself in this flight response where you're not willing to interact with your partner, is body work. So slow yourself down, start paying attention to your body, maybe do some yoga, maybe do some other exercises that help you connect with your body. In the next lesson, I'm going to share several grounding exercises with you so that you can use those when you get into this space where you're feeling hyperactivated and ready to retreat. Also, drink a warm beverage, snuggle your pet, ask for a hug. You want to do the things that help ground your body so that you don't feel like you have to stay in that flight mode. Next is the freeze state. That's feeling frozen and unable to move, feeling getting trapped in a fog, or feeling checked out mentally. I tend to do this when I get triggered. And it really is sort of a closing in where you just don't want to move. There's no motivation for movement and you feel stuck. And the passage of time, I was talking with somebody else recently who has this response and they freeze and they know time is passing, but in that frozen state, you just don't really care and just kind of checked out. And when you're in a single state, when you're not in relationship, you can spend a lot of time in that state and doesn't really matter. There's something about it that almost feels pleasant because you're separating yourself from pain. But when you're in relationship and you do that, the person who you're interacting with in relationship or who you're not interacting with because you're frozen gets confused, feels ignored, wonders why you're not participating actively in the relationship because you basically disappear. So when you feel yourself doing that, notice that you can't find the words, or you withdraw totally into your head and start thinking, or you have difficulty breaking through the fog and being present. Maybe you sleep, or you space out, or you feel yourself emotionally or physically numb. When that happens, you want to use some grounding exercises from the next lesson. One of them is to look around the room and find something, one thing that's your favorite color. When you find that thing, take a deep, slow breath and say, I see a red pot with a plant in it. Breathe and notice the pot, and then look around and find another item. That's another way to help you get present in the moment. And like I say, next lesson, I will offer some exercises to help you get more fully into grounding exercises. Finally, we have the fawn response, which is pleasing, the idea that you want to please and pacify the other person, put them first so they will approve of or love you, merging with other people. The big one about this is having none of your own needs. Because your need is just to be accepted and loved. So you're going to do everything you can to have whoever it is accept and love you. This is one of those things that will put you at biggest risk of being abused by someone. They look for people, abusive people look for and match with people who tend to be in this space when they're in a trauma response. That's how you keep your trauma responses ongoing. You're going to be unaware of your own thoughts, your feelings, and your bodily sensations. And when somebody asks you how you are, you'll be very quick to say, oh, I'm fine. But then you'll talk about someone else, the people you're concerned about, the people you want to be getting love from, and can go in depth about what they think, what they feel, and what they need, but really not so much insight into yourself. So that's a trauma response. and it's probably the trauma response that keeps people most stuck in abusive relationships. So if you notice yourself doing that, what you need to do is take the time when you're around other people to give yourself space to make your own decisions. You want to make a buffer zone so that you can be aware of your own needs. Hopefully, in this course, you have learned how to be more cognizant of your needs. But now, to be able to stop yourself from getting into that fawn response, the best thing to do is always give yourself a buffer zone. So you have a telecommunications marketer on the telephone. They're giving you a pitch. You have an impulse because you don't want to hurt their feelings to just tell them yes and then you cancel later. The best thing to do is say, I never make decisions on the spot. Let me get back to you. And you don't have to get back to them, but you can say, let me give me some time to think about this. And people who fawn, people who really put their own needs last, believe often that when they are um, asking for time to make a decision, that they're going to hurt someone's feelings. That's never true. You don't have to worry that asking for your needs to be met, including asking for more time to make a good decision for you, that's going to hurt somebody's feelings. If it does, this is a person who doesn't have your best interest at heart. Because in relationships that are healthy and secure and loving, both people get their needs met, and that's the expectation. Not that you'll have a fast yes to please the other person instead of making sure that your needs are also in the decision making process. So, those are the 4 kinds of behavior and that subtly go with fight, flight, freeze, or fawn in relationships. So look at them, identify what kind of behaviors you're doing. It's basically watch for them and then use the 6 steps. Next lesson, I'm going to get into some grounding techniques that I think will be helpful to you when you find yourself in a trauma response.